Okay, so you guys can hear me good and everything. Um, a little, I guess the background of this was, or what like led me to the idea of wanting to do it was it's hard with this virtual coaching world. The piece that I feel like I'm kind of missing to relay to people are those little tips about things like when to breathe, or how to breathe, or being able to watch someone breathe in a workout. Even if you can watch them on a video, it's still hard to see how they're breathing, right? So some of the tips I found myself wanting to give were mostly about bracing and breathing during like the lifts, but it's hard. I was struggling to get that across on a like quick video, right? So I was like, oh, okay, so we have this Zoom thing, like I'll try it out. So that's kind of where the idea came from. So I thought I would start kind of at the beginning. And this is a lot of stuff that they talk about it some when you go to workshops and you're level 1 and things like that. But it's something you also learn from experience, right? And from like just being on different teams with different people over the years, and just learning, from whether they're coaches or people that I've competed with, or anything like that. So little tips here and there. You never know, like some people, like they just have their wheelhouse, and they share something with you that just makes sense. And so I guess my goal is to just share it to more people. I thought that the best place to start would be the back squat, because that's kind of the most simplified, right, version of where we can breathe. So and since there are 4 of us, and it can be a little bit more tailored into like what we want to talk about, since it's available. But so in the back squat, it takes away the worry of the front rack position, which I want to talk about in a second. But the back squat kind of isolates that need to breathe, brace, lift, and then breathe out, right? And then release your breath. So, and the people here are pretty experienced. So if you're comfortable with the idea of just breathing and bracing, you good with that, Kai?
Yeah.
Okay. So, sometimes you see, like, since, you specifically do yoga, breathing and filling that space, right? And not just like sucking in, or not just breathing in, but actually using that breath to create pressure, right? And that's why sometimes, even if you're not using a belt to support you, sometimes a good cue for people is to just have it on, so they can actually like feel creating pressure against something, because that's kind of what we're looking for, right? In our lifts, it's like creating that pressure so that we're not collapsing at the bottom. So just the basic back squat, taking a good rack position still, but it's, like I said, a little easier on the back rack. Opening up the chest, breathing, taking that deep breath, filling the core, bracing, and then squatting, and then as we're going to the bottom, and then releasing the breath on the way out. Okay, so I'm gonna scooch so that I can actually move. Hopefully these lights behind me don't make me unable to be able to be seen. But so having that good posture, bracing, creating the pressure, squatting, and then breathing on the way out. The main thing here is to not release that pressure that we create at the bottom, because then it's going to be a lot harder to get back up. So I usually get my probably a quarter of the way out of the hole before I start releasing my breath. And especially if you're going for multiple reps, I try not to completely release it all the way out. Like you'll kind of hear, if you listen to weightlifters, that kind of like, right? And I'm sure does that have a name, Kai? Like
Oh, I mean, like the little breathing like that is
Yeah.
like, it's called like breath of fire, but it's like, it's not, I mean, it's totally different.
Yeah. But no, it's the same idea though, right? Like, so not like, because if you have it on your back, or even if you have it in the front rack, and even if you finish your rep and then totally lose all the tension, it's hard to get it back, especially if you're lifting a heavy weight. So like you'll kind of, you'll hear the weightlifters, like especially maybe after a clean and they're getting ready to jerk, but they're trying to keep that tension, right? Trying to keep the tension and then make the second lift or make their jerk. So really, like I said, emphasis on creating the pressure here so that we're adding stability instead of taking it away, squatting, and then exhaling on the way out, but keeping tight core. And even if I'm going for like a 1 rep, I'm probably going to rack it back up before I release my breath, right? Just because it's safer and I want to keep that stability as long as I can. So the same pattern of breathing comes on the front rack or for the front squat. But it's a little bit more important because that posture that's created by having a good breath can lead to better posture in your actual front squat, right? So like that cue of breathing might not only help with the stability, but it could also help with the position that it helps the person create. So same thing, taking that big breath in, bracing, not sucking in, right? Bracing, squatting, and then on the way back out. Keeping the tension if you're going for multiple reps. So if I'm gonna go for multiple reps, it might be make sense? Yeah.
When you say bracing, you mean like pressing, filling up the belly outward.
Exactly.
Okay.
Yes, exactly. So that's why I was talking about, if you have that belt, sometimes it's not just about the support. Like you could have a light belt on and it just gives people that cue of like, right? Like pushing against it. It gives you something to press against. Yeah. So that's your bracing. So those first two movements, the back squat and the front squat, I think are like kind of the easiest way to practice it because you have the bar in like that static position, and your legs are doing the work, right? And you're not having to worry about all the other things that are going on. But I think it does become pretty important when we're talking about pressing. So the press will start in the front rack position. Okay, so the press now starts in that front rack position that we've created, that nice shelf by having our big open chest. And so if we're doing like multiple reps in the press or a push press or jerk, the first one should be the hardest because we have to create that tension on the first one. So let's say like you're doing your first rep, right? You have to breathe and brace, exhaling as you press up. Then we're gonna re-brace at the top. Can't see my hands, but you're gonna re-brace here. So this is one where I see a lot of people come down, try to breathe here, which this is not ever going to be an easy position to breathe in. Yeah.
Can you do that again?
Yes.
Yeah.
This is funny because I have voices coming, but I'm not seeing anybody. Okay. All right. So here, breathe, brace. So you want the tension to be happening when the bar hits your chest. Yeah.
Like the filling up when the bar hits your chest?
You want to be full when it hits your chest.
Okay.
So you want to fill it up. That's why I'm saying, so that's why the first rep is going to be harder, because you have to fill it up at the bottom of the first rep. And then after that, it will be at the top. So you have that bar overhead after your first rep. Now I'm breathing, bracing. And I want to keep that tension. Right? Breathe here. Because you've created all that tension, and you want to use that stretch reflex as much as you can out of the bottom. So whereas like in a squat, you're starting at the top and going down up, like the press starts at the top as well. Or think of it as starting at the top, I should say.
Lindsay, like Kai had asked about the direction of the air. Are you thinking about pushing the air like down, like towards your pelvic floor? Or are you still thinking about filling your belly and pushing it out?
I'd say the feeling personally for me is pushing out away. Like if I have, like I said, if I have my belt on. But what if I'm doing multiple reps, I'm just trying to keep that tension. Like I'm trying to breathe, but not lose my core. And so that's why that you can kind of see it in the weightlifting, that shallow breath, so that you're not completely losing like your stability from your core. Does that make sense? So I'm breathing, but maintaining the tension the whole time. But what I really want is to bounce out of the bottom there. So really, like if I'm doing like a strict press, three rep max, like if I get that first one up, I should be pretty confident. Right now, my second and third one should actually be my easier reps, because I don't have to go from a dead stop. So starting at the bottom here would be equivalent to starting at the bottom of a squat. So if you've ever seen like a dead stop squat where you go and you put your rack really low and you get in there and you're at the very bottom, it's a lot harder to create the tension from the bottom and drive that bar up. So like your dead dead stop squat should be less than your regular back squat, because you don't have that bounce that's created by that tension. Does that make sense, everybody? Any questions on that? So I'm going to link this to two other movements. This pressing is the same breathing as the handstand push-up, but you're upside down. So, but the handstand push-up actually, you know, does start from the top. So imagine, flip me upside down. I'm doing a handstand push-up. I'm at the top. Breath. I want to exhale as I'm pressing out of the handstand push-up. What I don't want to do, what you see people do tons of time, is drop down to their head, let their breath out. Now they've lost all the tension in their body, and then trying to press back out. It's a lot harder. I mean, it's doable, but it's a lot harder. You can get away with it a little bit more if you're kipping, but on strict push-ups, handstand push-ups, that's unless you're like really strong, that's almost impossible. Like to drop down, lose all of your tension, all of your stretch reflex, and then try to press yourself back out of the bottom. It's really hard. So the breathing there should be the same. And then if you're breathing well, that tight core should be there, as well as the tight butt, right? So I'm here, upside down, my handstand push-up. And so a lot of times you might be better at the handstand push-up, or you might be better at the pressing, but if you can if you get lost on those movements, you can think about the one that you're good at and remind yourself of where you're supposed to be breathing. And movements like a strict press and a strict handstand push-up is where I really see the breathing and that tension to be the most important, because you're taking away like the momentum, right? Like you're really isolating just that strength. And so that's where those breathing things can be the difference between making a lift and missing it, or making that last handstand push-up or not making it, you know. I've done it before where I will drop down on my head and breathe out, and I can't press back up, and I can do, you know, 9 or 10 with a good breath. Like it makes that big of a difference. So some people might think like, oh, I just can't do handstand push-ups, I'm not strong enough, strict handstand push-ups, but it might just be that you're just not breathing at the right spot. You're just making it harder on yourself, you know. Or, oh, I can't lift that, but it might not be that you can't lift it. Like your arms might be strong enough, you're just not creating the position to make yourself successful.
Hey, Lindsay, do I have to breathe like that every single time when I'm doing handstand push-ups, or is it kind of like sometimes when I swim, I can hold my breath for a few strokes, right, and then do a big, right?
Yes. So that's a good. Yeah, it's a good question. If you're doing it in a workout, like I would say that it becomes more important because you're trying to keep your breath, or you're trying to, you know, maintain a certain heart rate, right, for a longer period of time. So holding your breath on a set of 10 handstand push-ups in a workout might affect you more, like cause your heart rate to spike, then you might be able to get away with it if you're doing like a 3-rep EMOM, right, of handstand push-ups. Like you might be able to hold your breath for 3 reps if you're going to rest the rest of the minute. But I would suggest, yeah, to practice it all the time. That
like
way when it,
sorry,
sorry,
but no, but that kind of made me think, like you said, like in the beginning, it seems like exaggerated, you know, like it seems like you're using all that breath every rep, but really you are going to learn after practice for it to become more shallow, and it be like just that, like you're still creating tension, but like it, not like shallow as in not effective, but like it isn't like you're over exaggerating your breath every rep.
yes, yeah. And I would say it's pretty specific. Like, you know, she said swimming, so Angela said swimming. So if you're swimming in a race, like you might just be like, oh, it's, you know, just it's 25 meters, I'm just gonna go, right? Like there might be a time and a place for that, but most of the time, like you're saying, it's better to practice it and be intentional about it. Like if I'm trying to PR my 3-rep strict press, like I'm actually going to breathe like that. If I'm trying to do 50 strict handstand push-ups in a workout, I'm going to breathe like that every single rep, because that breathing is going to help me maintain those handstand push-ups longer, to where if I don't, I'm going to fatigue faster, and I'm maybe going to use more energy to where I'm going to gas out at 40 and not make it to my 50.
I get lightheaded though. Is that like a practice thing? Is it because I'm letting probably it out at the wrong time? But like, say I'm going for a 5-rep max, and I feel like I'm doing breathing right, like for my back squat, but I get literally lightheaded. So if I do that for like 10 reps upside down, maybe I'm just doing it wrong too, though. That's why I get lightheaded. Does that make sense?
Yeah, I would say that, I mean, my experience is that I get more lightheaded when I don't breathe as opposed to when I do breathe. So I would have to kind of see maybe what you're doing.
Angela holds her breath.
Yeah. So you don't want to, and that's what I'm talking about. Like if you hold your breath, it's going to affect you. It might not affect you right then, but it might affect you like later, right? So you definitely can't hold your breath for 10 back squats. That's not going to work, right? But like kind of trying to keep that easy pace and the easy breathing the best that you can while maintaining that that posture. And it might be, you know, you might have a different breathing pattern for the first 5 than you do on the second 5, just because, you know, it's going to get, your heart rate's going to go up as you're going along, and you're, you know, it's getting harder, so you're having to exert more energy. So you might take a little bit more time, right, on your last 5 of a 10 rep set than you did on your first 5. So part of practicing the breathing is also knowing, right, like when and how to use it. Like, I'm not going to breathe the same for Grace for 30 reps of a clean and jerk as I am for a 1 rep max, right? Like, it's just not going to be the same, but it's the same idea, and it's generally the same. Like, just like my form on my clean and jerk for Grace should be generally the same as my form for my clean and jerk for my max. Like, there will be little differences, right? It's 95 pounds versus whatever, 215, like, but it should be pretty much the same. Does that make sense? So I would have to watch you, but I would say you're probably holding your breath more than, and it might be that you're going down up and breathing as opposed to breathing on the way up. Like, so you're holding your breath, but you're holding it too long. Do you get what I'm saying? Like, you are supposed to be holding your breath, but it's like down and then releasing the breath on the way up, as opposed to down, up, releasing, trying to breathe again. But there's a lot of it that's just finding your own rhythm. So one of the toughest exercises I have found, besides handstand push-ups, because people are upside down and it makes them very uncomfortable, is thrusters. So thrusters is now combining the squat and the press. Okay, so now this is one of those ones where, Angela, if you wait to breathe to the top of the thruster, that's a long time down up, right? So thrusters, Fran, it's gonna be, so we get our bar up to our front rack position. It's gonna be the same when we're combining the squat and the press. So breathing, bracing. Okay, what you see a lot is trying to breathe in while the bar is going up, and then breathe out, and then we're losing all of our tension at the bottom, and it's just making everything more difficult, right? So and this kind of can segue into breathing in a workout as well. So not only am I focusing on my breathing, but if I'm doing this in a workout, I might be focusing on my pacing as well. So that breath at the top, like, it's a fun one for me to do, Fran, always, because there's always going to be someone in the gym that comes out and does 21 thrusters unbroken, smashes my face on the first part, and then I dust them, right? Like on the 15. So the strategy might not always be go as fast as you can on the thrusters, right? It might just be keep the heart rate steady, focus on your breathing, keep your heart rate down, be efficient, and, you know, maximize your energy. So breathing in, breathing at the top. As you get tired on a thruster, like let's say you're doing your 21 of Fran, you might even take a whole extra breath at the top. But this, if you're not going to put the bar down, because the best place to breathe is when you have no bar and nothing on you, right? Like no weight on you. That's the best time to breathe. But the second best time to breathe in the thruster is at the top. We don't want to breathe here either, because why? we have a bar resting on our chest. Do you think you're going to get the same quality breath here that you would here? Right? So breathing in. Okay, and that's going to be also the same as a wall ball. So I'm a pretty good breather on a thruster, but I catch myself sometimes on wall balls. I will hold my breath from the time that I catch the ball till I throw the ball again, and it just wears me out super fast, right? So it could be a similar movement, and it just if you're not thinking about it, like, because I don't mind thrusters and I hate wall balls, so I just start holding my breath, and then 5 reps in, I'm gassed, right? So same thing. But you can see if I only breathe at the top, Angela, it's a lot longer to hold my breath, right? My breathing rhythm completely changes. So it's a balance of using the breath for bracing and keeping a good rhythm and cadence with your breath so that you are keeping your heart rate steady. So the better your breathing is, the steadier your heart rate is going to be, and the more efficient you're going to be probably in the workout. Because what you don't want to do is go right with the heart rate. And sometimes holding your breath can cause that.
I noticed after doing it, that, and maybe because if there's more than like, if it's not like a 1 rep max, or if you're not like lifting heavy weights, like I was saying earlier, in like if it's like more conditioning or like longer workouts, I count. So like and usually it's on that correct breath out. So like when I say like for thrusters, it'll be like inhale 1, 2, like when I count my reps, or same with my handstand push-ups. Cause I was trying to think about when I do it, when I exhale, and it's usually when I like have that counting. So that helps, but I realize that's where I like need to focus on my breath for like, the strength portions, because I'm not really focusing on my breath that way. So yeah, that's interesting.
Yeah, for sure. I think that's a really good strategy. And I think another strategy like that I've seen is if you are resting, this isn't for lifting or doing it while you're doing the workout, but if you're resting and you say like, I'm going to give myself 5 breaths rest, almost no one will breathe like and try to go, right? They're going to be like, oh, I'm like I have 5 breaths to rest. I'm going to try to stretch these breaths out, right? Like, and so that's something that can like help you slow your breathing down. I know that's a different thing than when you breathe, but it's also, important to keep the breathing slow. And there was something else that I thought of when I was listening to you, and as I was listening, it went away. But yeah, I think that's a good one to breathe when you're counting, for sure. Let's see if I can remember I had a couple of them. That was one of them, to count breaths as you're resting. The other one slipped my mind.
I kind of like condensing this so I can think about it real quick when I'm like working out. So when my belly basically has the most space, that's when I need to breathe in. So like when I'm stretched up, like when I'm doing a thruster, when the bar's above my head, like I'm not crouched down, I'm not squatted down, I have the most room to get air in my belly. So that's when I should be breathing in. Is that right?
I think that would work.
Okay.
I don't know if that's like, I think that would, I don't know. I'd have to think through different exercises and see if that would, I've never thought of it that way. I just, I personally tend to think of it more as before the tough, like when you're exerting the most energy, you want to like be braced. So like that, you get your arms locked out overhead, like that's where I'm exerting the least amount of energy, right? So that's where I want to breathe. But I mean, if you, I think that would work to think of it that way. The other thing I remembered what I was going to say, I trick myself. One of my strategies is to, when the workout gets painful, I try to focus on my breathing. And it distracts me from the pain of the workout, or, you know, whatever. That's why I like open workouts where people can count for me, because then I don't even have to worry about that. I can just only focus on breathing. And so that's mostly what I think about when I'm working out. If I'm like really in the pain cave, that's literally probably the only thing on my mind. But that's also because I have a lot of practice with my technique. So I don't have to focus on my technique as much. For me, the hardest part is going to be keeping my breath. So that's what I focus on. But that's where also Angela, like working on it all the time and trying to be like meticulous with how I move every single rep. For me, I found that translates when things get ugly, right? Like when the open workout comes and you're just like dying, like my movements stay truer because I am so strict on myself about how I move regularly. But I'm also a person that doesn't breathe well. So it helps me, you know, the better I move, the more efficient I am, the better I can breathe. So this for me was like probably a turning point. I've been doing CrossFit for like 3 years, and, you know, I was strong and I could do stuff. But I wasn't like, I was plateauing, right? Like and so I had switched gyms, got like, you know, some different coaching, and that's when like these are the type of things that took my game to the next level. I know everybody here isn't like super competitive, and you don't have to be, but it just, you know, everybody has goals, whether you're competitive or not. Everybody, you know, wants to get better. I don't know a lot of people that just want to go into the gym and just stay the same, right? Like we're all trying to, whether it's 1 pound or 15 pounds on a lift, like, you know, we want to make improvements. So the next step is to focus on things like, you know, maximizing breathing, or you know, creating that tension. And then I also have found that, like, you know, the better, like I said, that posture, just that breathing well creates, it actually is really good for just your movements in general, right? Like if I'm hunched over, like it's just naturally not going to be a good position for me to breathe in, as opposed to like having that big chest open. So just the combination of technique or form and, you know, breath, those two things, like I have found that just kind of up my game. And I think that that's kind of what redoing a workout, you know, you do a workout one time, you do it again, you learn like, oh, I got really tired here, I need to focus on, you know, how I'm breathing at this part, or I went too fast, which also can mean like I lost all of my breath, right? I couldn't breathe anymore. So kind of learning those things and learning where to slow yourself down, pace yourself, and really all the pieces fit together, right? It's hard to do just one, but like the better you do one thing, I feel like it elevates the different areas of your game as well. So
does the how you breathe matter? We do a lot of discussion on like you'll see it on the whiteboard every once in a while, nasal breathing only.
That might be a better question for Kai than for me. I think, I mean, I guess my understanding of like practicing a nasal breathing would be more of like a practice to improve in a certain area as opposed to a technique during a workout, if that makes sense. Rather than for performance, it would be more for practice. I also don't think that only breathing out of your mouth is very good for performance either. I've found that in through your nose, out through your mouth. I don't know if someone told me that or, you know, what it might be, but that's something that helps me slow down my breath is doing the nose breathing, because I found that
nasal breathing, like if you try to maintain nasal breathing, then it'll slow down your heart rate, or it'll keep at least like that slower pace. So that's what I do know. But in terms of like, you know, lifting a heavy weight and like making an exaggerated breath, like that might help better if you're trying to get like a 1 rep max. I don't know.
I nasal breathe when I'm pissed off and it works, but I don't really do it for a workout.
Yeah, Kai, you were talking about the breath of fire, right? So physiologically, when we breathe like really fast, the word for it is tachypnic, but it automatically spurs the parasympathetic nervous system, the fight or flight. So
adrenaline.
You're getting the adrenaline. It's triggering your body in a way that it gets ready to do it. So it makes sense for like the big lift, because you need maximal power, energy for the split second. And so you don't have the ramp up of the workout to get your heart rate up. You need to go from like here to like here, and it needs to be fast. The nasal breathing, is the rest and digest. It's the sympathetic nervous system. So that would be like my heart rate's here and I'm trying to bring it here, you know, in a controlled manner so that I can keep going with it. But yeah, I didn't think of that like right before. I do it like instinctively. I didn't know. I was like, oh, breath of fire. That makes sense. Like it's getting jacked up. You're getting amped up.
Right.
Yeah. So I use my nose breathing if I'm in a resting time. Like if I've like put the bar down and I am, you know, resting and I'm like, okay, like maybe it's a 3-minute thing and I've finished and now I know I have 40 seconds left, right? Till I know I'm gonna have to start again. Like I will try to, okay, slow the breathing down. And as a team athlete, a lot of times you're working, resting. And so that strategy works well. Now it's harder if you're in like a 20-minute AMRAP because there's not that built-in rest time. But I definitely have found that like that breathing in through my nose, like when I know I'm like, okay, I have a little bit of time here to rest, you know, if it's about, you know, 20 to 30 seconds at least, like I really try to use that to bring myself back down to get ready for the next thing that I'm about to do. But it would be interesting kind of to see if there are any weightlifters that when they reset for a jerk, whether they're breathing in through their nose or their mouth. That would be interesting. Yeah. I definitely breathe through my mouth, but I mean, you never know. It could be like the Chinese do it one way and the Russians do it another, and I don't know.
I've heard people do it. Like I hear, well, what it seems like in the gym or like seeing like things on TV or whatever, it seems like they breathe through their mouth or they breathe in through their mouth, like before like that jerk or whatever. I never do that. Like, I mean, maybe I should practice with it and just kind of play around with it and see. But I thought that was, I always hear people being like getting more air and then completing the movement.
Yeah. That'd be interesting to look at some of the articles and see if they have specific suggestions on that or if it's just, you know, personal preference. But
and then side question, you were like, during your rest, you try to breathe through your nose to like slow down your heart.
Mhm.
I've noticed with myself, like if a workout, like if you have to build in your rest or like you're like, I notice I like kind of collapse in terms of my posture. So like I'll like come down. Like if I'm like trying to take a breath or like resting, like I don't stand up tall and breathe, like, which I'm sure that's what you should do. Right? Like you shouldn't like obviously like crouch down and be like, oh, like, but I notice I do that. And it's not like I can't stand back up and go again. It's like this mental thing. It's like I just like kind of go down and I'm like, I have to like look down at the ground and like breathe for a second. And then I can stand back up and go again. But it's probably better to recover like by standing up and taking fuller breaths in and out.
So I haven't researched this in a few years, but we did get in a debate at some point when I was in Texas, and there are mixed reviews because there are some that say that standing up and opening the chest is good for you, and then there's also some studies that say that resting on your knees is actually a better way to breathe because
Right.
you're more relaxed. So you're not having to strenuously like actually hold yourself up.
Interesting.
So there was actually like some of us got in the debate at the gym, and I literally looked up the research, and it's kind of one of those things. It's like
Weird.
there's research for both. Like someone was like, "See, I told you this is better." Like I can actually relax, and at some point it might be individual people and their habits, and the best way that they breathe. But yeah.
There's a TED talk on power positioning and like the psychological responses to it. I'll send it to you, Kai. It's really interesting. Like it's a woman and she says like if you stand like Superman with your chest up and everything, that's like a position of power. So it's like a psychological performance enhancer that you're assuming power. So if you, by placing your hands on your knees in a crouched over or slumped position, that's a position of submission or reservation. And so it's like you're submitting to the workout. There was this whole debate over, do you lay down at the end of the workout? And do you like, what animal after just finishing the run for their life goes, oh yeah, I'm just going to lay down and let the lion come and get them.
That's funny.
So they're like, stand up and walk around, like you've won the workout versus submit.
I definitely just kind of collapsed. Like not like, I mean, I've just noticed it like over time, like every time I'm like, I'll hunch over and like, or I'll literally like crouch down and be like, oh my God, just like look down and then be like, okay. And then I'll like get that energy to come back up. It'll be interesting to just kind of try something different.
I thought you were just hiding from me. You didn't want to make eye contact with the coach that would yell at you.
Well, I just remember like, I remember being in the gym and like working out and doing that. And like someone, I can't remember who it was. It might've been like Shyla or something. I don't remember, but she was like, don't like stand up, like don't look down. And I just thought it was interesting because I like assumed that, but like you said, it's like, who knows? I should try and see either way.
So for me, there's a couple of things just with that, like if you're, and it's not necessarily the breathing piece, but it's just the amount of time that you're resting. So if you're, counting to yourself and it doesn't, I'm giving myself a 3 count, then maybe it doesn't matter like what position you're in, but like, definitely standing next to your bar helps me instead of walking away, because once you walk away from a bar, it's going to take you more time to get back to it, then pick it up, right? Whereas if you just don't move your feet, you could rest, don't move your feet, then my bar has easier access when I am ready, right? I don't have to waste another 1 or 2 or 3 seconds walking back up to it. That's kind of one that can, if you maintain proximity. But the other one, shoot, I got knocked. I think Mac might have just made me lose my
Well, it
My
made me
other tip.
realize while you're talking, and it made me realize that I actually do it more when it's like an AMRAP and I have to like find my own time to rest. And I think I like do something and I just have to like mentally, because it's for me, like I'd rather do like okay, you do these movements for 3 minutes, then you rest, like the rest is incorporated, or like an EMOM and stuff. Like
Yeah.
I can rest more effectively, I think, than in like an AMRAP when it's like, like when do I rest?
For sure. And sometimes that's just picking the right movements to rest on, right? Like the movements that you breathe better on, that you know you breathe better on, that's where you want to not rest, right? Because you will rest while you're doing that movement, whereas you might want to break up the movement that you don't breathe as well on more. So being strategic with your rest, and the movements that you choose to rest on. And then I literally, like, as you were doing that, I remembered what I was going to say and then I forgot it. But yeah, kind of finding those of your own strategies. Somebody's got to talk for a second so I can get that one back. It was a good one. It was something about resting. Oh, yep, got it. Okay. The biggest thing though is if you're resting, rest. Like that's the biggest thing that I see when I'm coaching, is that people are resting with a barbell in the front rack, or they're resting while they're holding a weight, right? Like they're getting ready to clean. I'm Nick's making dinner. They're getting ready to clean and they're holding it here. And it's like, they're going to go back down and clean it. They're holding it here. It's like, just drop it on the floor, right? Like drop it on the floor, rest. Don't rest with the bar here. Don't rest. And like I said, unless you're doing like, I'm going to do these 21 thrusters unbroken and I'm taking a split second rest here because I'm not going to put it on the floor. But like, there are times when it is better to just drop the weight, breathe, and then pick it back up, because you're wasting more energy, right? Like just holding on to your weights than you are actually, you're not getting a lot of rest out of that time, is what I'm saying. So, but those are the little tiny tricks that, you know, are just the little stair steps that you can take just to get a little bit better.
Yeah.
Who else we got?
I needed this before the WOD today, Lindsay.
I was about to say, if we want to talk about today's workout and breathing, I'm
gonna do it tomorrow. I did yesterday's today.
I was gonna do yesterday's after I did today's, and then I was like,
no.
Nah.
I'm gonna try to.
I'm done.
I'm gonna try to practice my breathing tomorrow on the cleans.
Yeah.
But side note, I got real frustrated with myself on, no one did it, like Sunday's partner WOD. I was like, Will, do this with me. And I was like, okay, like, you know, this is cool. Like, oh, like 135 squat cleans. I don't think I've ever done that. Like for me, like a power clean and even like a clean and jerk, like squats, I don't know. I just feel like it's just not my strong point, but I was like, I'll try. So we did everything. Like we did the partner workout, get to the last part, and I couldn't do it. And I was so pissed off. Like, I just like, I couldn't even power. I was like, I'll just power clean it. And Will's like, cause we were like going back and forth, and I like tried to do it. I couldn't even power clean it. I was so mad at myself. But
135 after doing all of that work is a heavy squat clean. Like,
yeah. Oh, I know. I mean,
for a mortal.
It was just a good like moment of humility for me to be like, oh. I'll take 20 pounds off then.
So crazy.
Anyways, yeah, I need to work on my squat cleans. And
what's your max?
You probably should have been my partner, and then you would have just killed it.
No, I mean, I can't believe I was so mad, and he was doing the RX weight, and I was like, oh, I don't know why. I was just so mad at myself. I guess because I thought that I could do it, and I tried. You know what? I'm proud of myself because I didn't let it stop me from trying. So I tried, and I was like, girl, stop.
What do you know what your max is?
I don't know what my max is for a squat clean. I just feel like we haven't like cliniced it in a while. So like I haven't been able to explore that. But I mean, I can do like 145, like I think like a 2-rep max for a clean and jerk. Yeah. So it was like, that's why I was like so mad at myself, I think. Cause I was like, I can do that. I can do at least one. And I couldn't. And I was like, damn.
Yeah, I'm sure it's definitely harder at the end. But was it you just weren't getting it high enough?
But you know what it was? It was I don't have the technique down because when I bailed, I was standing all the way up and like when I should have been dropping under the bar. So like in the moment we couldn't like break it down and talk about it like Will and I, but like after the fact I was like I was all the way up here before I didn't get it, and at that moment I should have picked up my body and dropped under it, but I don't have it down, so I have to practice that.
Yeah. Now if you're getting it up here, that means you're strong enough for sure.
What's your front squat? You practice front squat?
So this was actually one thing I wanted to ask you guys, or like ask someone. It's interesting, like front squat and back squat, like I'm not very strong. Like I don't feel very strong in it. One, because maybe I'm gonna start doing more breathing techniques with it because I don't do that when I do it. But like I don't know, my front squat is like it's not very heavy. Like I mean, in comparison to like, you know, I'm not much of a competitive person, but when I do like I like on Wodify being able to compare to some people to be like, okay, cool. Like I could push myself from around this area.
You're so competitive. Stop it.
I mean,
Yeah.
I'm
Kai, not competitive.
really? You think I mean, maybe I'm like secretly, I don't know. I've changed. I mean, I guess I've changed a lot. I've learned to like be a little more like competitive, I guess, to better like myself and grow. But like back squats and front squats, like I'm like amazed at like people's weights when I like do mine, and then I'm like, oh, let me see. Like, dang, because like if you really do it well or you know how to do it, you can move a lot of weight. Like you can squat a lot of weight, but I don't know what it is. Like I'm just not there. But when it comes to like overhead stuff, when it comes to like a push press or like even like a strict press or stuff like that, I feel stronger, and I don't feel like my legs aren't strong. I just don't know. I think I just have to work on it. I'm not sure.
Lindsay can testify to this for me. I definitely have the strength. It was the confidence. So that's why I started I make it a ritual to do squats, front and back squat, try to every week. Yeah. And I'm doing that to gain strength, but really to gain confidence. Because if I'm not confident enough when I'm doing that front squat to do 155, then how do I expect myself to squat clean it, right? But if I know I can front squat 155 3 times, there's no reason I shouldn't be able to squat clean 155. Does that make sense?
Right. No, that's how I felt because we just did front squats the day before or like a couple of days prior, and I was able to do 145 5 times, and I was like, okay. Oh, yeah. But that's from the bar and like, you know, doing it. So I felt like, okay, my legs are strong enough, but the like squat clean from the ground and coming up and landing in a squat, it's like just a whole different thing.
For sure. I mean, that's a lot of technique. Your front squat will tell you like more what you can expect from your clean, right? So like if you can do 145 5 times, you can definitely squat clean 135.
I know. I felt in my head. I was like, why can't I do this?
Yeah, but there is a ton of, and if you're not breathing on top of that, then you could probably do more in your front squat. But the clean, once the clean pull happens, it should virtually be a front squat, right? Like, so the mechanics should be the same. And I was just gonna tie this back to our breathing deal real quick. But what I see a lot is like if we're talking about a front squat, and I was gonna try to tilt this, or a clean, I mean. So if somebody's going for a max clean, they do and lose the breath at the bottom, and then the weight crashes, right? And it might not be, I'm trying to get low for you guys, but it might not be like all the way at the bottom, right? But they lose, the breath comes out here because it's heavy. And as soon as that breath is gone, like what do you have? There's nothing, right, to drive back up from. So you would want to, once you get it up here, you're braced, right? So that you're bouncing out of the bottom. Does that make sense?
So once you, if you're starting at the bottom, you brace, inhale, and then.
So if you're starting with your clean, right? Like if you see people go for a heavy clean, sorry, my face isn't in here. They spend all this effort, right, getting it up, and then they breathe out when they're catching it. Like it crashes and it knocks their breath out.
Mm.
And what I'm saying is if you lose that breath at the bottom of your max, like near your max of a clean, like it's going to be really, really, really hard to get back out of the bottom of that. So just as like a technique piece, like you might even do the whole clean right. But if you lose that breath at the bottom, you might just get stuck.
Mm-hmm.
You know what I mean? Like, so sometimes it's just like, you could have the whole clean pull and all of that like perfectly, but if you happen to, on that rep, lose your breath at the bottom, it's going to be a lot harder to stand it back up. So
can you go through your whole breath, not to like put you on the spot, can you go through your whole, like, and emphasize your breath when you're doing a squat clean? I would like to see that. Like
squat clean.
When you're breathing in, when you're pushing out. Yeah, squat clean.
Yeah, actually it was funny because I was not on the squat clean, but I was practicing it on the cleans today in the workout. I was over exaggerating to see when I was breathing. Let's see. Trying to set it up the other way so I can, my head might be cut off, but that'll be all right. Oh, that was actually something that I did want to talk about. And then we'll get off of here because it's been an hour and I don't want to bore everyone to death. But dang it. Sorry guys. I might need to switch it to the upward view. So one thing, especially if I'm taking like a max lift, like I always breathe like a couple of good breaths before I even go, because that's like also going to be important, right? Like I'm trying to, you know, get that oxygen flowing before I even go. But so I'm approaching, I'll usually take a big breath up tall. Then if I'm going to jerk it, can you hear my breathing when I'm doing that? Yeah. Okay. So big breath, brace. So it's once I get past that quarter is when it's starting to come up. Then, like I said, I try to stay tight, but breathe out, then breathe back in. Like what I don't want to do is like try to catch and breathe at the same time. Same thing, like we don't want to let it out here because then it's just I'm gonna lose my posture. Yeah. So it's always on the stand up. As I'm standing up is when I'm breathing out. And people make fun of me. I can send you some good heavy back squats. People make fun of me sometimes for the yelling when I'm lifting, but I swear to God, if I'm lifting something really heavy, like 290 pounds in a back squat, like that breath is coming out. Like that's how it's coming out, as a yell. Like it's because I'm using that breath and like I'm trying to let it out, but I'm not wanting to go, right? Because if I lose it, even if I have 290 here, I might not get it all the way back up if I just totally let my whole breath out. So even on the clean, I got some good clean videos with some good yells. That yell is, and actually I think there is science to back that one up too. You lift more when you yell. If you watch the weightlifters, Hook Grip is by far the best site. Instagram, if you have Instagram, Hook Grip, awesome. They do these super slow-mo lifts that are amazing, and the lifters are really, really, really like the best in the world. But if you're like yelling, you can keep that like tension and let the air out, right? Like, so it's not just like a right, it's like a it's just a loud, you know.
So,
But
sorry, I know we're about to go, but I just, one thing that reminded me of, we did that one freaking workout. When was it? Last week. It's like a workout that's like a name. It's front squats and bar facing burpees. Front squats like 105.
I can't remember.
Is that Point Break?
What was it? Point Break.
Point Break?
Yeah.
Oh
my God. I don't know why that freaking, Will was making fun of me and I was making fun of myself after because I was literally like, no tears were coming out of my face, but like I was doing the front squats and I was like, like I was like, it wasn't like a yell. It started as a yell and then like going up because it's like 5, 7, 9, 15, 12, 9 or something. On the like 15 and 12 or something, I was like, I sounded insane. Like I was like, this mentally is killing me right now. Angela, on Point Break, the front squats and bar facing burpees.
Oh, I love that.
Yeah, I'm sure you did.
So good.
I was proud of myself for doing it, for finishing it. Like, and I
was stoked with my squat clean. Like,
yeah, you were insane. But I was like, I mean, on that, now that I think about it, coming up out of those front squats every time, I was like, like I was just like,
yeah,
dying.
The breathing was definitely key. Like I was definitely using some, so that's cool. I think I was breathing at the right time. But
there you
yeah,
go.
front squats are my nemesis, girl. They're so hard, especially if I get stuck down at the bottom part. I always let my breath out down there because
yeah, that's gonna be real hard to get back
I'm
up.
blacking out.
Yeah, every time I post like a heavy clean video, my sister's like, is it muted because you were yelling? I think Becky and you guys were having a meeting last time I did like heavy cleans and they were like, is everything okay out there? I'm like,
It was you. It was you and Nick.
Yeah.
Both of you.
Stop. That's
Well,
how it
thank
comes
you
out.
so much. I'm going to practice this.
Awesome. Thank you guys for being here. I thought no one would show up, so you know what? I'm happy.
It was great.
Yeah.
Yeah. All right. Well,
Thanks, Lindsay.
bye guys. Hopefully
you.
we'll
Bye,
see each
thank
other
you.
soon.
Bye, y'all.
Bye.
Yeah.
Bye.